Recently, Ahmednagar is renamed as Ahilyanagar by the government of Maharashtra. Who is this Ahilyabai now? Maybe we have forgotten now, but 300 years before, her rule in Malwa was very popular quite then, not just in India but was outside India as well. She was compared to the Queen of Elizabeth in England, Catherine the Great of Russia, Margaret of Denmark. Such a popular queen we had forgotten for 300 years. Ahilyabai is not from a royal lineage. Then how did she become a royal queen? In 1725, Ahilyabai was born in a small village called Chondi in the present-day Ahmednagar district. Her father was a headman in the village. Those days, women didn't go to school. It was her father who taught her to write and read. This was the time when Aurangzeb had died and the Mughal Empire was on the decline and the Marathas were on the rise. It was Peshwa Bajirao who was ruling from the newly acquired territories like Rajasthan and Malwa were given to chieftains as Jagar. Malhar Rao was Jagar of Malwa. Once Malhar Rao was returning from a military campaign, he visited a Shiva temple. There he saw a young little girl whose charm and spirituality attracted him. Malhar Rao decided to get this girl married to his own son Khande. This little girl is none other than Ahilyabai. So in 1733, Ahilyabai is married to Khande Rao at the age of 8. This is how she turns into a beautiful royal bride of Malwa. After her marriage, she used to accompany her husband Khande Rao in many military campaigns. Throughout her life, she was brought up by her mother-in-law, who trained her into administration, accounts and politics. When things were going well, there comes this unfortunate twist in the story. In 1754, her husband Khande Rao dies in a battle of Khumer, after which Ahilyabai lost all her interest and gives up on life to commit sati. Nobody is able to stop her from committing sati. But finally, her father-in-law tries his best to stop her from committing sati by saying the following: "No, daughter, now you are my son. If you will also leave, who will take care of me? Without you, we would be nowhere. Seeing you, I'll forget all the sorrow. So, daughter, forget about the wish to be sati." Finally, Ahilyabai gives up the idea of sati and her father-in-law gives her training in administrative and military affairs. In 1765, she leads a military campaign herself and captured Gohad Fort near Gwalior. Just 12 years after her husband Khande Rao died, in 1766, Malhar Rao also dies. Thereafter, her son Male Rao comes to power, but soon within months, he also dies of illness. Just imagine series after series of women is struck with disaster. What is expected out of Ahilya to do? But she never gave up. Instead, she decided to ascend to the throne herself because she knew she had to fulfill the responsibilities towards her people and towards the kingdom. But many in Malwa itself objected to her rule. But the army and the military commander Tukoji Rao Holkar supported her rule. Remember, Tukoji Rao is the adopted son of Malhar Rao and has all the rights to ascend to the throne, but he rather chose not to do. He found Ahilyabai to be much more able and a just ruler. So just then she writes a letter to Peshwa Madhav Rao to grant her the administration of the Holkar dynasty. After the Peshwa granted her the permission, she proceeded to rule Malwa with Takuji as the military head. Considering Ahilyabai to be a weak and destitute widow, Raghunath Rao makes a conspiracy against Ahilyabai. But soon Ahilyabai comes to know about this conspiracy through her spies and she prepares to ward off Gangadhar in the battle. She arranges everything for the battle. Then she quickly forms an army of women who are militarily trained. Though this wasn't the first time she was going into the battlefield herself, she decided a strategy to avoid this war. She writes a letter to Raghunath Rao. "Our swords will run as soon as your army comes across the Shipra river. Keeping this in mind, take steps." Looking at this letter, the first impression of Raghunath Rao was, is this the voice of any helpless women? This is a lioness. And Gangadhar Rao decided not to fight. This way she ruled Malwa for 28 years. Let's look at some of the achievements of Ahilyabai and let's see what really makes her stand out of the other kings and queens. Perhaps the biggest achievement of Ahilyabai was that no one would attack Malwa during her reign. At a time when whole of the central India was under a series of power struggle, it was only Malwa which was fully stable and peaceful like an oasis. She set up a textile industry which is even now very popular by the name Maheshwar Saris. Holkar family is known for not using public money for their personal expenses. By this time, Ahilya had inherited 16 crore rupees and she used this money to fund all her philanthropic activity, not just in Malwa but throughout India. From Himalayas to the deep south, she set up hundreds of temples, numerous dharamshalas, many tanks and wells. She sponsored many festivals at these places. She repaired and restored many temples all the way from Badrinath in the north to Dwarka in the west to Rameshwaram in the south to Puri in the east. Amongst all of them, the most prominent being the Kashi Vishwanath in Varanasi, which she rebuilt in the year 1780. Remember, it's the same temple that Aurangzeb had destroyed and he had constructed a mosque over it in 1669, some 111 years before. Her fort was always open for the common people who could come over and share the grievances every day. She was literally the mother of all. In 1795, she died at the age of 70. Her 30 years long rule will be remembered as an effective government model, and a proud legacy will be remembered forever. Ahilyabai Holkar.